Spoiler warning. The following discussion will contain spoilers. We recommend checking out the movie first, then coming back to hang with us. But if you don't care about that, glad to have you here. Alright everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Real Review, Mandalorian Edition, a series where we travel along with the Mando on his journey through Season 2, discussing each chapter as they release. My name's Kevin.
And I'm John.
And we are The Real Movie Guys. On today's episode, we'll be discussing Chapter 12, The Siege. The Mandalorians rejoin old allies for a new mission.
This is an interesting one. They start off right where we last left off, but it also brings back a couple of characters from last season, which I thought was a pretty interesting way to start it off.
Yeah, we got Cara Dune came back, played by Gina Carano, and Grief Karga, played by Carl Weathers. We got to see them back, the old army from Season 1 rejoining up there.
How's my credit around here?
I think something could be arranged. Isn't that right, Marshal?
I'm sure we can work something out.
And I thought it was kind of interesting, like the way that they started off. You were kind of wondering like how they were going to start this one off, but they started off with what I feel like a lot of people were complaining about with like the last episode, like there was less Baby Yoda.
Right.
And this one starts off with like a lot of Baby Yoda.
Yeah, we had a lot of Baby Yoda. This episode is directed actually by Carl Weathers. I wonder if he gave himself like a little special treatment in this episode, because he had some extra handling of the Baby Yoda early on in this episode. He was like playing like goofy face with him and like saying, "You protect him. You do what you got to do." He was like holding the baby.
You come here, little one. Has Mando been taking good care of you, huh? Have you been taking good care of him? Yeah, he said yeah. Yeah.
I felt like that was a little out of character almost for him at one point.
Well, the weird thing too, like when I first started watching this episode, I didn't even know like he directed it yet.
Right.
So watching it, I was like, wow, he seems to be playing like a big role in this. And it's almost like Mando was kind of taking like almost like a back seat in a way.
He did, yeah. And it was weird. This is an interesting episode for me because I feel like it was another filler episode in an extent. I know it's not technically, but it almost feels like it, to where we're just getting from point A to point B in a creative way. So they took old characters that we knew, they gave us a little insight what's going on with them, and they're just trying to find out how the Mandalorian's finally going to get to the Jedi, because I predicted this episode was going to be about Ahsoka. Apparently, that didn't happen. That this episode was more about Mando visiting old friends and kind of reliving the past, and I take a little bit of issue with that. But what did you think of this episode, John, overall?
I thought overall, like you said, I feel like it could have been like a filler episode, but I thought it was kind of like also a creative way on how he got his ship fixed.
Right.
Because instead of them just going like, oh, he knew how to fix his ship again,
sure,
they kind of like made it seem like, all right, well, he had to go get his ship fixed, and that way we can bring back some other people that people maybe enjoyed from the last season.
I do like that the fact that he needs, the Mando's relying more on people. He's really people he trusts. He's going to get help to fix his ship. My only issue with this episode is this is something that's been creeping into this series slowly. Sometimes it's more blatant than others, but in this case I feel like it was very blatant. Is they're kind of worried about a little too much tribute to the past. So what I mean by that is, take, for example, the scene where they infiltrate the Imperial base. It literally looks like the infiltration from A New Hope when Luke and Han and Leia, they're all on the ship. Literally, they go into the cavern where that generator is. It's the exact same scene, almost, from A New Hope, right? When they shut down the shield reactor. They even make the blue guy, which I feel like we're going to talk about him. There's some issues with that guy. He even references there's no guardrail.
There's no guardrail on this. Come on!
There's no guardrail here. Who wouldn't put that here? And he's like walking around, and they literally lower the shields and everything the same way. And even the trench run, I felt it was almost like a Death Star trench run. I mean, the action's really good in this episode. I'm sure you would agree. I did like the action. I thought it was well done.
Oh, no, 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 no!
but it felt too much like A New Hope. This episode just felt like, oh, we're going to tribute A New Hope the whole time.
I also thought they could have added more action too, like
Right.
when Mando flies up on like the airstrip almost area, when he flies up and they're waiting at the door.
Hold tight.
The fish guy is playing around with trying to open the door and stuff.
Dinkferg.
I feel like they could have showed that action up there. I feel like that would have
It was weird.
been awesome
'cause,
too.
Yeah, the
It
Mando...
was just like a kind of like a cutaway.
Well, it's weird because the Mando like discovers that they're going to find out where they know where the child is. Moff Gideon has an idea. It seems like because the transmission was more recent, so he knows where the child is. So he's going on like, oh, I gotta race back and I gotta go save him. Cara Dune tells him, go ahead, you gotta go through the chute and then get out of here. So he flies up. And then he kind of just flies away and that's it.
Yeah.
It was weird. It was just weird. I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I know he comes back later and he saves them in the ship and everything.
Yes! Yes!
Hang on, kid.
But at the same time, I'm like, really? That was it?
Well, you
Like,
know what?
he's gone? The Razor Crest is a really cool ship, by the way. I do want to throw that out there, his ship. I actually
yeah.
really like that ship. There was a scene where he's fighting in the air with the TIE fighters, and I never noticed that before. I'm like, how would that ship stop and, like, reverse? There's a scene where, like, the engines, like, flutter open and stop midair. And then they go forward. I'm like, that's a pretty cool piece of tech. I never really expected that from the ship.
Yeah. Well, and also one part that I thought was pretty cool and like interesting to like me was when Grief Karga he's in the ship and he's shooting at the planes coming at him.
Right.
And I feel like it's almost like it seemed like it was almost like a video game that I feel like I've seen before where you're sitting in a chair and you got that kind of gun and it's like turning around, but like you're normally wearing like the goggles and everything. I feel like I've seen like a game that's like this in a way.
So what did that remind you of? Didn't something like that happen in New Hope?
Yeah.
If you really think about it, it was almost identical, right? When they're in the Millennium Falcon and they're shooting the ships.
Yeah, like
It was literally the same thing. And again, that drives my point home where it's like, I don't mind you paying tribute to the past, right? I love that. I don't think you should give fan service. There's nothing wrong with fan service. I feel like in today's culture, we treat fan service as such a dirty word. Like, oh, how dare you give the fans something they actually like. No, there's nothing wrong with that. When it becomes a problem is when your whole episode or whole movie, whatever you want to make, whatever you're making, becomes too much based on that. And that was my main issue, I think, with this episode. I just felt like they were telling New Hope. They literally took some of the plot from New Hope and put it in this episode.
Yeah,
and it felt kind of lackluster, you know? I mean, I know Carl Weathers, he's a great actor. I really like him. As a director, you know, I felt like this was probably the weak... Honestly, I thought the second episode was more interesting than this one. I feel personally like this was one of the weaker episodes. The action was fine. Like I said, it was too much just, oh, remember when we did this? Remember when we did that? I'm not a fan of that, you know? Yeah. To an extent I am, but when your whole plot's consumed by it, I feel like that becomes an issue.
Yeah. Well, now let's get to your point of the fish guy.
Oh, yes.
I want to hear your opinion about him.
Because I really needed him to come back into my life. He was in, for those who don't remember, he was in the first episode of season 1.
I can get you more credits.
I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold.
Mando captures him, throws him in carbonite, and sells him off. For whatever reason, we needed him to come back, and they're trying to use him as this comedic character. I would equate him, if you really want to make a comparison, I would equate him to like a C-3PO, right? Could you see that comparison? He's like that C-3PO humor with like Carl Weathers is kind of like the Han Solo C-3PO dynamic they're trying to go for.
It's a little close for a civilian, don't you think?
I got two choices for you. You take us in and I knock 100 years off your debt.
Or
or I leave you out here in the lava flats to walk home with whatever's left in your humidity vest.
So much of a choice, is it?
It
Yeah, but
doesn't work. It
I like
doesn't work at
C-3PO a
all.
lot better too.
Yeah, it doesn't work for me. Their comedy didn't. His jokes just didn't land. I love Carl Weathers. He was landing his plots, but
I'll take my chances down here, but thank you.
Well, when the lava tide comes in, give us a holler. We'll drop you a rope.
the back and forth it didn't do anything for me. It was kind of just annoying. Like, why are you still here? You're not even interesting.
It was almost in a way I kind of felt like they kind of thought that the episode wasn't going to be long enough either, so they had to add that in.
I think
Like
they
it was
wanted
almost second nature.
Yeah, they just wanted a weird back and forth dynamic, and they tried to inject some humor, which is okay. The series has its humor. It's not Marvel lovers of humor where I want to vomit because everyone's a jokester, everyone's having a good time. They inject a little bit of humor. I'm okay with that. It's fun. It's a fun series, and it should always be treated that way. They treat the serious moments seriously, and the funny moments have some, levity to them. This, it didn't work for me. That dynamic they were going for. Again, it's back around to my whole A New Hope idea. I felt like they were just trying to copy things that worked in A New Hope and shoehorn it into this episode.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like you also knew that something was going to happen with the child when he left them at that school, because it seemed like an awfully odd thing to do. Like,
yeah,
not
it's weird.
Not on
he
his
brought
character.
It up. But that I feel like that adds a couple things. So that adds to the layer of the Mandalorian as his character, because he actually trusts Cara Dune. Cara Dune says, "You can trust me."
Wherever I go, he goes.
Mando, please. Where we're going, you don't want to take a child, trust me.
He'll be fine here. You have my word.
So that shows development in his character, where before he never would have trusted anybody to even a small degree, especially with something that important. So that should tell you, to him at least, his character, how much he trusts these characters. These people are people he really trusts literally his life and his existence with, which I think is pretty cool. And then the whole Baby Yoda thing, he was more in this episode, definitely. But I think we got to see him interact with children a little bit. And I thought that was kind of cool. Like, he's even weird by other children's standards. Like, the children's in the class, they were all laughing at him. They were like, "Oh, who's this little green kid?"
All right, class. Settle down. Back to the lesson, shall we?
But he had a cute scene, right? He was stealing the kid's snack, and he used his force powers and took it.
Why is he always so hungry?
He's always hungry. He's a grown boy. He needs his food.
Like every episode, Yoda needs to eat.
Yeah, Baby Yoda was really just in here for the cute factor. But I do like the idea. We got to see him go to school. Like, would he be able to live a normal life? That's kind of interesting. Like, is that something he'd ever be able to do? I assume not with, the Empire literally after him. I don't think he'd be able to do that. But I thought that was just kind of cute. And then he had his throw up scene at the end of the episode. That was always entertaining.
Not too bad, huh, kid? Oh boy.
He goes,
I'm messy.
I have stuff I have to clean up.
Can I at least buy you a drink?
Sorry, I have some onboard maintenance I gotta take care of.
I also actually like the cold open a little bit, where they had him helping the Mando fix the ship. He's trying to tell him what wires to cross.
But be careful. They're oppositely charged, so keep them away from each other. Make sure you hold them apart from... No, hold them apart.
It reminded me of... Again, maybe this is also like a thing. It reminded me of Guardians of the Galaxy with Baby Groot. When Baby Groot had to deactivate the bomb. It felt very similar to that respect. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess... Again, this episode just didn't feel very original to me.
But it also...
overall.
Yeah, it also made me think, though, does Baby Yoda actually understand what Mando's saying?
Yeah.
Or what other people are saying? Or does he not?
I feel like he does. Mando, I feel like they have a connection where they understand each other. Even if it's unspoken, I think they definitely understand each other's, thoughts and what they say. Because, there's been times where they've even communicated. It's almost like There's, I think, episode 2 actually with the frog lady where he's like asking her where he went, and Baby Yoda's going like whatever he's saying, and he like understood him, which was kind of weird. True. I'm like, oh, you can understand what he's saying?
Yeah, definitely.
The show likes to write off Baby Yoda when there's more serious action going on. There's always an excuse to put him somewhere, leave him somewhere. Getting a little tiresome, so it's interesting to see where they're going to go with that.
Well, yeah, it's also interesting to see where this whole, not just this season, but the whole seasons in general are going to go from here.
Right,
because I feel like this could be like a big part to it.
Yeah, because we got to, I mean, as much as I feel like this episode may have been slight filler, there was some information that was given, actually, in this episode. We know that Moff Gideon, is part of the Empire. Baby Yoda is part of a cloning, some kind of cloning or breeding experiment that they need him for. We didn't get much information. It sounds like cloning.
Replicated the results of the subsequent trials, which also resulted in catastrophic failure. There were promising effects for an entire fortnight, but then, sadly, the body rejected the blood.
From what I gather.
And they need, like, more parts.
Unfortunately, we have exhausted our initial supply of blood. The child is small, and I was only able to harvest a limited amount without killing him.
Right. It sounds almost like they're trying to create something, because at the end of the episode, we do get to see these black suits of armor, stormtrooper style. Moff Gideon, they place a tracker on Mando's ship at the end of the episode. Oh, we didn't know that was going to happen.
The device has been planted as you requested.
Good. You will be well rewarded in the new era.
They put a tracker on the ship, and Moff Gideon's talking about, where we're going to find him. In the background, they show these armor. Now, for the Star Wars fans at home from the video games, there were things called Dark Troopers. They're from a lot of different series. I actually remember them from the Battlefront series back in the day. Now, they're not technically canon yet, so this is kind of their first introduction. What they're going to do with them, I don't know. I feel like Moff Gideon, what he's doing is he's trying to create super soldiers, like super stormtroopers. Maybe that's what they're going after. I don't know. The only other couple things I do want to just mention, for those who were paying attention, IG-11 was in the background. There was a statue of him. I don't know if anyone noticed that at home. I thought that was pretty cool that the town paid a little bit of tribute to him. Would make sense to the whole story. That was kind of cool. The only other thing, we actually get a little more about Cara Dune, which I thought was interesting. They actually bring up that she's from Alderaan.
Says here you're from Alderaan. I served during Alderaan. Did you lose anyone?
I lost everyone.
So, again, Star Wars fans that remember, Alderaan was the planet that Darth Vader blew up in A New Hope. And that's where Princess Leia's family was from. And everyone essentially died. Everyone on the planet died. So I don't know where that's going to play into. I don't know if Cara Dune's going to become a bigger character. I could definitely see that. Gina Carano, she's a good actress. I actually really like her.
You did a hell of a job cleaning up the system. According to records, you're quite a soldier. We could really use you.
I'm not a joiner, Blue.
A lot of people compare her to like Ronda Rousey, which I get. I totally get the comparison. They're both MMA fighters. Both try to get into acting. Gina Carano, definitely the better actress of the two. I'm not a huge fan of Ronda Rousey and her acting. So I'm curious to see where they go with that, because I feel like they're hinting at something much bigger, especially with the inclusion of our favorite X-Wing pilot. I don't even know his name. Captain Carson Teva.
How long after the Razor Crest jumped out?
I never said anything about a Razor Crest.
Your transponder log.
Transponder log? Come on, give me a break. The control droid can't tell apart anything pre-Empire.
Apparently that character has a name. He was one of the pilots that I did actually claim in the second episode that they weren't going to come back. John said it was going to come back later, so I think he's right. He was one of the X-Wing pilots that pulled over Mando, and now he's out here fishing, for a story, what's going on over here, because they're tracking the Razor Crest. So now we see the Rebels have an interest in Mando. The Empire has an interest. We don't know what's going on. The plot's thickening, and if anything's really telling, the next episode's called The Jedi, and it's going to actually be the longest episode they said to date in the Mandalorian series. So you just know something big's going to happen. And not even to mention that, it's actually going to be directed by the Clone Wars director. Dave Filoni is actually directing that episode. And for those who know, he was actually the director of the Clone Wars animated series. So to give him that project, that means something big is coming in the next episode. So John, where can the people find us at home?
You can find us on YouTube, The Real Movie Guys on YouTube. Hopefully you'll like our channel, subscribe,
Definitely
hit the notification bell so you know that when we put out stuff. We got a huge month coming up. Big Christmas month, holiday month, whatever you want to call it.
Star Wars fans, Merry Christmas. It's coming.
Yeah, you can watch Star Wars Christmas on Disney Plus.
Oh boy.
If you want.
Don't do that.
Also, you can find us on Twitter, The Real Movie Guy on Twitter. You can interact with us there or on YouTube. Either way, we try to get back to you.
Absolutely.
We try to read your comment at least. You could also listen to us on many podcasting platforms such as...
Yes, for your listening pleasure, we are also available in podcast form at iTunes, Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcast, Overcast, Breaker, Radio Public, and Pocket Casts. Be sure to give us a listen at any of those fine places. If you already are right now, hey, we greatly appreciate it. Just search Real Movie Guys. We should pop right up. Thank you all again so much for joining us for this episode of The Real Review, Mandalorian Edition. My name is Kevin. That guy over there, he's John. We are The Real Movie Guys. Real guys, real movies, real thoughts. And don't forget, this is the way.